Welcome to the 280 Times Trivia Channel, episode 141. Joe Rogan, Facts and Trivia. I'm Joel Curtis, and here we go. When is Joe's birthday? August 11, 1967. What is Joe Rogan's full name? Joe's full name is Joseph James Rogan. How old was Joe when his parents divorced? "7 years old." Fact: Joe's biological father is also named Joe Rogan. They haven't spoken to each other since his parents divorced. What was the name of Joe's first TV series? Hardball. What was the name of Joe's character on News Radio? Joe GARRELLI. During which UFC did Joe make his first appearance as an on-screen talent? UFC 12. Who was the first fighter Joe did a backstage interview with? Jerry BOHLANDER. Fact: starting at UFC 12, Joe did backstage interviews with fighters and some post-match spots in the octagon. He actually lost money doing these early UFC spots, which led to his leaving the company for several years. Which would be Joe's last UFC event, in the role of backstage interviewer? UFC 17. Joe met which long-standing friend and conspiracy theorist, while taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes taught by Jean-Jacques Machado? Eddie Bravo. How many seasons of Fear Factor aired in its original 2000s run on NBC? 6 seasons. Fact: Joe is absolutely convinced that had the original Fear Factor continued, eventually there would have been a fatality. During which event did Joe return to the UFC? UFC 37.5 was Joe's first time on commentary. What unusual activity does Joe describe as providing his favorite alone time? His favorite alone time is in a sensory deprivation tank. Who does Joe credit for the creation of modern podcasting? Adam Carolla. Can you name the Adam Carolla, Jimmy Kimmel, Comedy Central series that Joe assumed hosting duties for when Carolla and Kimmel left the series? The Man Show. Who was Joe's Man Show co-host? Doug Stanhope. Fact: I also had no idea who that was. Which long-standing, good friend of Joe's talked him into trying stand-up comedy? Steve Graham. Which former reality show contestant did Joe date? Jerry Manthey, from Survivor. Fact: the romantic aspect of their relationship ended when Jerry caught him cheating on her and confronted him about it by bringing the other woman with her to his front door. In which state did Joe attend Catholic school? New Jersey. Has Brandon Schwab been a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience more than, or less than, 50 times? As of November 2019, Brandon Schwab has appeared on 70 episodes. Fact: Joe had an intervention of sorts for Schwab on an episode of the JERRI podcast about his MMA career, which ultimately led to Schwab retiring. How many times has fellow comedian and Two Broke Girls co-creator Whitney Cummings appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience? Six times. How many past or current WWE wrestlers have appeared on Joe's podcast? Four. Can you name them? Diamond Dallas Page, Jake the Snake Roberts, Jesse the Body Ventura, and Ronda Rousey. What is the name of Joe's friend, comedian, multi-time guest and WWE enthusiast? Tony Hinchcliffe. How old was Joe when he moved to Boston? Joe was 13 years old. How many times did Joe win the Massachusetts State Taekwondo Championships? Four times. How old was Joe when he started using weed regularly? "30 years old. Who introduced Joe to his unrealized love for weed? Eddie Bravo. On February 10, 2007, Joe confronted which fellow, quote-unquote comic over years of accused joke thievery? Carlos Mencia. Fact: although they didn't actually meet each other until years later at the Laugh Factory, the night that Joe confronted Carlos Mencia was the first time that future friend and fellow comedian Whitney Cummings saw Joe in person. Which entrepreneur/philanthropist's visit to the JERRI podcast in September of 2018 ended up costing taxpayers $5 million? Elon Musk. And that's it for this episode. Thank you all so much for joining us, we hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what your favorite fact or question was about Joe. For the 280 Times Trivia Channel, I'm Joel Curtis.